Welcome to the Smeth Den. Welcome to the Smeth Den. It's nice to have you. What am I listening to? I'm listening in my own stream somehow. Alright. Let's call Erin. Hello. Hello. So we speak.
How's it going?
Good, good.
Good.
You?
Yeah, doing all right. Just finished my stream and doing some editing and stuff, so you know how that goes.
Cool, cool. So you're not streaming this?
No.
Oh, no. Let me put up my camera for you to see me. Do you mind if I have your camera, or do you not want to have your camera?
Sure, that's fine. Yeah.
All right, dope.
Hello, Smeth heads.
All right. Let's pop this out. I would have set this up before, but I wanted to do it kind of in a little intro.
Sure.
So I had like a big weird jacket on, and I took it off and I draped it over my chair, and then I grabbed another jacket and then I put it on.
Nice.
So you gave me a virus on Discord.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
It's okay. I mean, I fell for it. You fell for it. I fell for it just the same as you fell for
Yeah.
it. So.
Yeah, depending on who you ask, I'm well known for giving viruses, spreading viruses, and stuff like that. So.
What do you mean, like STDs?
Yeah, that's what people say about me.
Huh. Why? Do you really?
No, I tested clean. I don't have any STDs. Here, let me help you out a little bit. I'm gonna flip my camera around.
I just fucked it. I fixed it. No, I fixed it. I fixed
Okay,
it.
all right. All right.
But I have to fucking fix this. Fuck it. Okay.
Based.
So you got canceled real hard.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, that's what they. Yeah. Yep. Very
Yeah.
hard.
So you had to like leave Twitter and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have a Twitter account anymore. I don't know if I'm ever gonna go back to it. I don't know if I'm ever gonna be allowed to go back to it, which is a weird thing for me to say. But
What do you mean by that? Like by Twitter or by yourself?
by the people harassing me.
Yeah, that's fucked up.
Yeah.
So, just to be clear, So just get
Hmm.
get shit like out of the air and stuff. I mean, what you did is like wrong, but like it's the kind of wrong that like it was like forever ago, and it like I think there are a shit ton of 21-year-olds doing exactly that, and
Yeah.
and the fact that your relationship lasted so long, uh, I think should probably also mean something in the equation, and I don't think you should deserve to be treated stuff. But it's a conversation to be had about the problems with that. But that doesn't mean like Erin Green is a monster. I think Erin Green is a normal person and is something to talk about, you know. But
Thank you. Yeah. No,
well,
I'd like to consider myself a relatively well-adjusted person. I mean, I was on the anyway, I'm not going to bring that up. But
well, when I say normal, I mean I'm pretty sure you aren't a totally normal person, but um,
yeah.
I've seen you
Hey,
posting in
I've
my.
been watching Minecraft videos on YouTube. There's no way I can be normal.
Actually, I would say that makes you pretty normal.
Oh yeah, yeah, okay. That's fair.
um,
But yeah, no, I like I don't know. One of the big things that's been running through my mind over through all of this is that we've had you know a lot of history together, and I'm just surprised that now is the time that she chose to say something versus any other time before, before we started our relationship or before any of it got to be this bad or at this point or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
Um, that's the thing for me.
yeah. Um, it's tough because I mean, like I said, like she is pointing out something that you did that's wrong, and so it's really hard to defend yourself.
Yeah.
But I think you deserve to be able to defend yourself, and that's a really hard position to be in. It also is a position where opportunists can swoop in and just like take a fucking bite of your fucking uh, easy picking meat there and just get some content out of it. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that's what people have done actually. Yeah.
yeah,
A lot of people that were already predisposed to not like me jumped on top of this and are the primary drivers behind spreading it. Um, so there were a whole host of other reasons why a lot of these people already didn't like me. Most of them were just personal grievances or maybe jealousy to an extent. But yeah, as soon as they found a reason to cancel me, to do this kind of thing to me, they absolutely jumped on top of it and ran with it and continue running with it months later. I'm still getting these comments on my YouTube I'm having to remove. I'm still like anytime I reactivate my Twitter account, I'm getting death threats. Police are showing up to my door. I legitimately have to fear for my life over all this. And it was something that happened over a decade ago. And I'm not that person anymore. I haven't been for a long time.
yeah.
Um,
I remember being 21. Uh, I could have done something like that. It would have been easy, you know. But
yeah,
you're not that smart when you're 21, and like if you're lonely or whatever, and it's just the people you're around. It's just like it happens. It actually happens, So we should
yeah,
talk about it. I mean, yeah. So like it's not
yeah.
really that fucking deep. I don't. Yeah, obviously, I don't think you. I don't think you deserve to be treated like that at all. Um.
I mean, certainly I deserve to be taken to task for the mistakes that I made. You know,
Yeah. Yeah. So
um,
how much have you like talked about like um what's wrong about it and stuff and the repercussions and stuff? I'm sure this is something that happens with all these similar cases and stuff. But like it's especially bad when it's like actually not even something that's wrong. Like it's like when it's like a 20-year-old and a 17-year-old and stuff. It's
yeah,
like dude, just get over. Like that's not even like in most states that's legal, and like it's just like
yeah,
sure you can talk about, but there should be no scolding. um but but often in those cases when people are being like dogpiled and stuff, then they get really defensive and they need to like be um they need to publicly like wound themselves and like
Hmm.
publicly admonish themselves and like like do a whatever the fucking thing with the Japanese
Seppuku. Yeah.
seppuku. Yeah, and honestly, and it never helps. It just makes it
No.
worse.
Yeah.
So did you end up doing something like that?
I did, and I have. Every single time that I've tried to like bring my Twitter accounts back, even just my professional one, even just the one for the show, which the only reason I want to bring it back is because I have a bot that automates my like when I post a video, it'll post a tweet for me. That's it. That's all I want it to do is just post the tweet to get more exposure.
Hmm.
But every time I've brought that back, or every time that I've sat there and I've apologized or, said that this was wrong, this is the like context of what I was working with 11 years ago. This is, how I was thinking. It just makes it worse. I find that no matter how many times I apologize, people will continue to say that Erin has never apologized. She feels like she's justified in all this. She feels like she's always right and stuff like that. And that's just patently false. It's not true. I know that I fucked up 11 years ago. I don't do that kind of stuff today, which would be a more accurate reflection of who I am as a person, I think. But
Yeah. So what would you say to a 21-year-old who was in your position at that time? What would you say
what would I say to a 21-year-old that was in my
to
position?
like not like to yourself because that's different, but like into like
Right.
someone exactly like you in the same exact position? What would you say to them?
Yeah. I would explain the importance of understanding power dynamics and how, at a certain point you reach quote unquote adulthood. Like you said, there are a lot of like early 20s people that are still not fully developed, right? That don't
Yeah.
have that life experience, that don't have that level of knowledge of what they should and shouldn't do. And that's especially true for the queer community, right? Because a lot of times what they'll do is they'll find that their family's abusive and leave them, and so they don't get that level of perspective. They
Yeah.
either have an abusive or neglectful family, and they don't have that opportunity to learn that through their parents' experience,
But
and
even
so
even
that's
though they
why.
don't even though they don't have perspective, they still are a more mature mind developmentally. So they're even though they don't understand the ramifications, there is still a power dynamic problem,
Right,
right?
exactly. And that if you were to take a moment and, excuse me, live life through the young person's uh, eyes, live through their perspective, you would, if you were like 15, 16, 17 years old, you would be looking up to these people as role models, right? You wouldn't be looking at them as equals and stuff like that. And that is why it's so important to maintain your presence of mind when you interact with people of this age. I know of many, many queer communities that are open to allowing minors in the space because they feel like, that they don't have anywhere else to go. And I
Yeah.
understand that for a whole host of reasons. But,
I see
you
that and
know,
it freaks me out because of
yeah,
exactly this.
yeah, yeah. I understand that. And that's why a lot of these queer communities that allow younger people in end up falling apart and end up not being successful. Because the people that run these communities usually aren't that level of responsible. They don't have that same presence of mind that you would need. They would make the same mistakes I would and see these people as equals rather than somebody that they need to protect and mentor and stuff like that. So,
Yeah, I think you clearly get it, and I think that they should. I mean, that's if these people that if they care about the issue, then dogpiling you like they should obviously have a conversation with you about it. Um,
yeah, no one's really reached out to me. The few people that have gone on to say that I was like gaslighting them or misleading them or whatever, and that's also not true. I don't know. Like
well, I
I've been
think
accused of so
well
many
my
things.
my gut instinct there is that you might have like appealed to them and they came around to you in your conversation with them, and then they go back
Hmm.
to their peers or whatever, and they're like, in like, we need to hate this person. They're like, oh shit, this person
Yeah.
tricked me into siding with them. Um, so now from here on, this conversation is probably going to get harder because we agree on all that. Okay.
Yeah.
And this is going to get less personal. So what do you think the role? I think there's a connection between this type of cancel culture and the trans activism community. Do
Can
you
be.
agree?
There can be. Um, Especially because a lot of larger trans influencers sort of lean into that. Um, if you're aware of a certain particular large Twitch streamer that has raised lots of money for different causes and has had feuds with people like Destiny and stuff like that. If
Mm-hmm.
you're aware of them, then you're kind of aware of their history of using this cudgel to beat other queer people and other people into submission, just by weaponizing their community and doing that. And that's horrifying to see. That idea that you have to meet some sort of absolute purity test in order to be considered part of the community, that is really horrifying, and it makes people want to feel like they can't be forward, they can't be open with other people in the community because if they are, then they won't meet this purity test. Maybe they'll get called out. Maybe they'll be ostracized, like I was.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I don't find it very helpful. No.
Yeah. So do you still consider yourself part of that community though?
I mean, I think it's a little bit unfair for some of these people to say, "Oh, Erin's trying to weasel her way back into our community." It's not your community. It's the trans community. Nobody owns it. It's just trans people. That's it.
Yeah.
Um, And so I do think it's a little bit unfair for somebody to sit here and say, "Oh, well, we have to kick Erin out of this community because of the things she's done," when the community they're referring to is the trans community, which is a huge community, way beyond like what happens on Twitter and stuff like that.
They want to untrans you.
Yeah, yeah, almost. I've
Uh,
considered detransitioning because of this, actually. Yeah,
I feel like it's like a cult.
can be seen that way. Yeah. There are a
So
lot of like inside groups. There are a lot of like group chats inside trans Twitter
mhm.
where a lot of people's self-worth is built up on
Yes.
their status in these communities.
Yeah.
And I find that to be particularly harmful. I did a quote unquote drama stream a number of months ago, before any of this happened, which caused a whole lot of these people to not like me, first of all. But the idea was that I was gonna tease this like big drama bomb. I'm gonna drop a whole bunch of information on all these people, and I listed a bunch of names and everything. And when I had 100 people show up to my stream, which is way more than I usually get, um, instead of doing the drama bomb, we took the trans survey. There's a national survey that goes out every year, and I had everyone in chat take the trans survey. And so we did that first.
Mm.
And then I pulled up the document, and the document was just like a bunch of nice things about the people that I had listed. And people were still mad at me for that because I said nice things about them because I
Well, you
I
did trick
misled
them.
them.
You did mislead
Well,
them.
okay, but listen, okay? I was watching other YouTubers do that. Like Destiny did that with his Keffels
Yeah.
conversation, where he teased that it was going to be about the Jordan Peterson thing or whatever, and he had hundreds of people come in,
Yeah.
and he was like, "Well, I had to, I had to bait and switch you." And so that's how I felt about the trans survey. Because if I just did a stream that was like, "Okay, let's take the trans survey together," I'd get maybe 10, 15 people to come in. But if I tease this like big drama bomb or something like that, they're bloodthirsty for drama. And that was my commentary on this, was that too many people in this community are bloodthirsty for drama. They're willing to sink their teeth into anything, and make it
Sure.
such a bigger deal than it is.
Sure. I'm gonna say I think that it's a little bit I think if you're gonna trick people, in my opinion, I mean, we don't have, I'm not gonna agree with you on everything, but I think if you're
Yeah.
gonna trick people like that, you're gonna have to really have something important. And so like, was I don't know what the trans
Mhm.
survey is. Like is that like important?
It is. It's important for a number of reasons, but primarily it's for representation because a lot of this gets fed through the same processes that the census does. And so the trans survey is used to determine how many trans people live in a certain area. And, your submission is completely anonymous. You don't have to give any like identifying information about yourself or anything like that. But this is used to determine how, like, the percentage of the population that exists in a certain area that's trans. And that's really important as far as writing laws and making prescriptions for communities and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
That is super important to get done. And that's why I wanted people to do it.
All right.
But
Well,
yeah, I agree that the
yeah.
way that I handled it probably wasn't the best. Looking back in hindsight, I certainly would have done things differently. Maybe not like teased a whole list of names or anything like that. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think it accomplished its goal and it said what it needed to say. Even though I did face a little backlash for that.
Yeah. You know what? The subversion of trying to saying you're gonna do something negative and then trying to do something positive seems interesting. I like it. But I still think I would be annoyed if I was one of those people. But so I can
Oh,
definitely,
trust me, they were annoyed. Yeah, they were really annoyed. Yeah.
yeah. Um, okay. So I am familiar with the trans and LGBT slash queer community. I know for like a number of years I was like self identified as like a femboy kind of type.
Uh huh.
And when I was living on my own in Boston, I got a lot of support, and I was in a lot of these circles and stuff. And I felt like it always came with a lot of caveats, and a lot of those were as like a white male. I felt like I kind of had to like hate myself in
Hmm.
order to be loved. And I feel like there's sort of this kind of pressure to sort of trans people, and
I could see that.
yeah, and so that's why I sort of have rejected that, and I'm try to reclaim my um like having a beard is new to me, um and being like masculine and like being sexy is it's like I'm not allowed to, and
Hmm.
there's not really any place for a straight man to be sexy, really. I'm like doing this like social experiment sort of where with like making like porn and stuff, and it's there's no real niche for it unless you want to go gay or go LGBT or whatever. Um, and
Yeah.
I've so I'm familiar with the communities and the support you're talking about, but I feel like the support has this culty kind of attitude, and like you were saying, but it sounds like you still want to be sort of an activist, but you just want to not be culty, and that might be hard.
Yeah. Uh, it is a fine niche that I'm trying to drive myself into, and I'm not going to be too surprised if I'm not successful in that. But a lot of what you're saying about it being hard to be sexy as a cis white dude or something like that, I totally empathize with that. I think a lot of that has to do with oversaturation of the market, right? There are a lot of cis white dudes that want to act in porn and be sex workers and a number of other things. I think at this point, there are so many of them that you need something in order to stand out.
I don't think that's
Um,
it. I don't think that's it.
you don't think so? Why
No,
not?
not at all. Not at all. I think it's incredibly undersaturated. I think that there's like tons of like people will say, "Oh well, like guys are sending dick pics and shit." That's not that's like that dick pics are so repressed of a form of sexual like expression. Like if you're gonna send a dick pic or something, I tell like if you're gonna send a dick pic and you're afraid to have your fucking face in it, you shouldn't be sending it. Um,
Yeah.
like, but like it's just boring, and like the ways that straight white and not just white well black men have their own special sexiness. They have their own special sexiness. So I think it is
Right.
straight white men
Hmm.
that I think that there's only like a very few stoic ways you're allowed to be sexy, and
Hmm.
like anything creative or like sexually like really expressing yourself is going to be rejected, or not just rejected because like in because I the if I'm very creative, and I don't have a problem with like women in private or in like a conversation being like, and they'll like agree, but they're not going to admit it publicly. The only men that we're allowed to admit are sexy publicly are just like really boring, like I have muscles and I have a boner. That's about it. Like that. Like there's not. I'm standing here. I got muscles and a boner and I fuck. That's about it. It's just like yeah, but like okay, like okay. So you go to the gym. Is there anything else to this? Um, I think that
Yeah.
if you want to say the oversaturated, I think that women is very oversaturated, but it's so much easier to get sexual attention the same way as a woman. So I don't think that that really is it. I think that like
Yeah. Well,
there's
I think the sexual dynamics between men and women are different in that men want sex for different reasons than women do. And I feel like I'm at a unique perspective here because I've seen it from both sides, let's say. Formerly being a man myself, a lot of the reason that I wanted sex in the first place was just to get off, to feel like I accomplished something, to put a notch in my bedpost, so to speak. Once I started transition and my libido went way down, I found that the reason that I wanted sex was to feel closer to people rather than to feel like I had accomplished something. And so I feel like a lot of this is just a disconnect between the communication there between men and women, is that a lot of men don't understand why women want sex and vice versa. Women don't understand why men want sex.
all right. Well, I agree with you that I think men are emotionally retarded, and but I think women are also emotionally retarded in different ways. And
Okay.
I think that you're absolutely right, and I think men should learn that all these red pill guys and stuff saying like to go out and fuck and stuff, and like that's like fulfilling in itself. That's really causing a problem for men.
Yeah.
But I think that women have a very unhealthy relationship to their place in sex. So men are their sexuality is the aggressor. You get the sex, and that means you succeeded. You're a fucking predator, you know.
Right.
But like with
Yeah.
women, it's you're an object, and the way you feel sexy as a woman is being an object and being preyed upon. And women don't, and so like I was saying before, like there's no like you can't like just be sexy as like a white dude because there's no women like going out there. They're just like, oh no, I'm gonna objectify myself and wait for the men to come to me. So I think that's a problem because men, if you want to change men, you're gonna have to allow them to be objectified too. You're like they need to be allowed to be vulnerable and be embraced for that, and there is no room for that. So I think that women are being entitled and their elevated position sexually. I think that comes with a lot of consequences, and it's not all rosy. But I'm saying in the psychological like relationship between men and women sexually, I think that being the object entitles you to um, a lot of attention and affection and stuff that men don't get, and I am jealous of that, and I resent that, and and that's part of why I was a femboy, because I
Hmm.
wanted to be treated more like a woman, and in a lot of ways I wish I was a woman. I went to art school, and I saw women get a way ahead by being supported and helped, especially by men, and like I don't I don't know. You probably can think of examples in your life, but just especially like people say, oh, this is like, oh, I'm overrepresenting. Maybe it's just art school, but the girls in art school, really likely to get a boyfriend to help them out to become an artist somehow, like especially like slightly older guy, and it just like guys just don't get that at all. Don't get any emotional support. I'm not allowed to be sexy. I have to go be I have to go get the job just so that I can get the money so I can afford to impress and pamper the woman so that I can deserve affection and shit. And I just want to, I want at least a middle ground. But in me having these critiques or on being unhappy with being a man in modern society, and I would blame the patriarchy, and I think that the problems, the criticisms I have of women are problems that women have with the patriarchy or society. Like it's not like they're evil. It's like it's all a complicated system of interconnected. Right. Yeah. So people tell me that that means I'm trans. I've been called a trans egg and stuff, but I've gone through this, and for me, going the opposite route has been liberating for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I think a lot of the things that you express are pretty common with early stage trans women, but I wouldn't necessarily say that that makes you a trans egg or something like that. I think a lot of those prescriptions are actually harmful. There are femboys in the trans community that often complain of, this constant barrage almost of other trans people in the community saying, "Oh, well, you're trans. Just come out. Just come out. Just come out. Just take hormones." I think it is certainly a problem, and it's something that it's complicated to unfold here, because a lot of these what I want to call memes in the trans community are born from a need for trans people to feel like part of a group. Because for a lot of trans people, for a long time in their lives, they felt ostracized from other groups. They felt ostracized from maybe even their own, high school friend group or whatever. And so it's easy for new trans people to take the memes that they see and the common jokes that they see and stuff like that and start just parroting them. And so you get into this almost cycle of people realizing they're trans, coming into the trans community, and then parroting these memes that are ultimately harmful in feminism's fight against the patriarchy. And I think what you said about the patriarchy is certainly true as well. I think that's something that feminism tries to fight against, is especially the idea of gender roles in society and what should be expected of men and what should be expected of women. Ultimately, I think that's just harmful to society in general, that there's a huge spectrum of different types of men, different types of women, different types of non-binary people. I don't think it's fair to, look at someone and say, you're a woman, I'm going to put you in this box. These are the behaviors that I expect from you. I think, you look like a man, I'm going to put you in this box. These are the behaviors I expect from you. Ultimately, doing something like that and not seeing people as individuals is harmful to society overall. Not just men, not just women, but everyone.
So if I want to be treated like a woman, not only do I want to be treated like a woman, but I am an autogynephiliac. I fantasize about being a woman. I've had this since I was in kindergarten. But it's not like, so I have a lot of, I have seen you being fucking a sexual degenerate, okay? So I don't know if I'm making you uncomfortable if I'm talking about sexual shit, okay?
You're okay.
But, okay, so, but I've have like kinks and stuff that I know are not going to be as fun in real life, like long term and stuff. And so like if I transition for that, like something that I've done is chastity, and that's a kink that lasts a long period of time. And and I've said it before, in the moments when you're not horny, it's truly a horror. and you have to be ready for that. And um, if I were to transition because it made me sexually excited, it would. But then after I transitioned, though, then I feel like I would be remiss to allow myself to regret it, and I would have to embrace it, and then the community would be telling me to embrace it, and it'd be this self like reinforcing cycle where I have to keep like just like repressing my negative feelings and embracing it a positivity until eventually I implode.
Yeah.
So
Well,
what is the real reason to be trans? Because I want to be treated like a woman. I get excited from the idea of being a woman, but I'm happy.
excited.
Yeah. But I'm happy as a man, and I'm happy. I'm so happy not shaving my legs, and I'm so happy like working out and
Yeah.
getting muscle, and so yeah. So what
There
is
are
it to?
plenty of trans muscle women out there that never really gave that part up, that felt like they needed to when they started their transition. And I've talked with many of them personally, because I felt like it was a perspective that I lacked, because I was never into bodybuilding before. I'm not into bodybuilding now. So hearing their perspective was really important to me, to expand my knowledge of how people see life. And from their perspective, they felt pressured by the community to give that up by saying, women fit into these boxes, women are soft, women don't have muscles, stuff like that. And then when they started to break free of that and continue to go back to their bodybuilding habits, they found themselves a lot happier with themselves. And a lot of the things that you say really ring true for myself and my discovery of how I learned that I was trans. That's not to say at all by any means that you are or should pursue it.
Mhm.
Certainly, if you feel like it, you should, but you should feel free to have that option, right? Not necessarily that a community should push you into that. Um,
Sure,
but
but what is it that makes you trans and me not trans?
um, simply that I accept that I am, and that you are not. And that's all that makes me trans versus you not trans. Um, when I started to realize a lot of these things about myself, right? Like when I started to question my gender identity, it was a long, long time ago. I kind of put it in the back of my mind. It's not something that I really wanted to address back then. And as time went on, I felt myself more and more comfortable with these ideas. I toyed around with stuff like chastity. I toyed around with talking to people to get them to talk to me like I was a woman. I toyed around with a lot of things. And the catalyst for what it was that caused me to come out was that my partner at the time, the one that I recently broke up with, had found out that I was talking to these people and asking them to talk to me like I was a woman. And she said that I was cheating on her, that I was lying to her about this, I was being deceitful. And so I just had to be honest with not just her, but with myself as well. And when I thought about it more, I realized that the reason that I wanted to talk to these people was to explore that side of me, right? If I find some random people on the internet to talk to me like I'm a girl when I'm a cis dude, that can help me explore those feelings. And that is what brought it out in me. So after we talked about it, I think it was like a week or two went by, and I started hormones. And I've been on hormones since. And I found that being on hormones and seeing the changes that happened to my body, not just physically, but emotionally as well, I'm so much happier with who I am now versus who I was before. I felt like I had almost no identity before, that I didn't even know who I was before. I struggled a lot with that. And I found that as I was on hormones, my libido changed significantly. I don't
Mm-hmm.
get horny nearly as often. Um, the reasons that I do are completely different. When I do have sex, I don't have that like feeling of regret. I don't have that feeling of disgust or whatever that comes with
I think most
reaching
men
an
have that.
orgasm.
Most men
Yeah.
have that because they're raping themselves.
Well, I don't want to get into the reasons why
Well, I mean, it's
necessarily.
just the forcing yourself to have sex when you're not really want
Yeah,
to. Yeah.
you feel like it's almost a need that you have to satiate, you know? Like
Hmm.
it really did feel like, I have to do this every so often or I'm gonna explode. Like before I was like bending over the toilet, like letting nuts fly, and that was disgusting. I didn't like that about myself. Now I have sex like maybe once every couple months and I'm fine with it. I don't have any desire to feel like I have a a quota to meet or anything like that. I don't feel that constant pressure to always be having sex. I don't feel like my self worth is built on who I have sex with and how many times we have sex. My relationships certainly aren't founded on any of that. I'm just a lot happier. And a lot of that came from just experimenting and taking hormones, even if I didn't think it was going to be right for me at the time. It ended up being the right move for me. So
But do you think you could have been happy without doing that?
I don't know. Uh, I think I could have been complacent. I could have been fine. I didn't necessarily have so much of a an experience with dysphoria. I just spoke with somebody else, some other trans woman who told me that a lot of what you might know as trans medicalists say that if you don't have gender dysphoria, then you're not trans. Period. That's it. But the way she sees it is you can either have dysphoria or you can experience euphoria. And if you have either one of these about the gender that you are or want to be, then you're trans and that's it. And for me personally, I felt like I didn't have so much of the dysphoria part. I didn't have like this disgust with my own body. Um, but I did find that as I was taking hormones, I felt a lot more euphoria from doing so, seeing the changes to my body and the changes to my mental state and such like that. And so I feel like I felt a lot more euphoria from transitioning than I ever did dysphoria from not.
Hmm.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing. And that's, everybody has a different experience with being trans and questioning their identity and stuff like that. And that's like, that's the goal I have is to just talk to as many trans people as possible to get their experiences out there to share that because that often goes overlooked. People don't consider that there's a huge spectrum, just like there are of, cis men and cis women. There's a lot of different ways you can be a man. There's a lot of different ways you can be a woman. There's a lot of different ways you can be trans and non binary. And I think that gets overlooked. And that's why I want to talk to as many trans people, as many non binary people as I can to have them share their experience so that somebody else might find something they relate to.
I'm a lot more sympathetic, for lack of a better word, to the euphoria argument than the dysphoria
Mhm.
argument because for me, the dysphoria argument, I feel that it's like trans people are um, changing themselves because society sucks.
Yeah.
And I don't think they should have to change themselves. I think we should treat people better. Like you shouldn't have to change yourself to be treated and the way that you want to be treated and stuff.
Right.
So that's how I feel about, and I don't like a lot of maybe it comes from what you're calling the trans medicalists, but
Hmm.
I don't like a lot of the proof and science around like saying that like trans women have the brain of a woman. or something. Like,
Hmm.
I don't think that even holds up. Like the same thing can be applied to. You can do the same thing to janitors. Like, oh, you can scan a bunch of janitors' brains and say like, oh, janitors have a different brain than people that are rocket scientists, and it's like, or like just people who have different lifestyle. But that's just because they have a different lifestyle. I don't think that proves that they were born that way. And a lot of this kind of stuff is um, held up as proof that to me just isn't proof of what they're saying it is. Um, do you agree with that, or am I?
To an extent, I think. I think it's not fair to say that you're right. It's not fair to scan somebody's brain and say, oh, they have the brain of a janitor, or they have the brain of a man, or the brain of a woman. I think everyone's, brain is kind of unique, It's like a seed in Minecraft. When you roll the seed, you get
Yeah.
a completely unique experience. I do think that taking hormones, I have seen, I've almost been 2 years now, and on February 11th, it'll be 2 years on hormones. And in those 2 years, I've seen significant changes to the way that I think, the way that I process information, the emotions that I have. I cry so much more now than I ever did as a man. I went through, I'm going to divulge a little bit of personal information here. Most of my family has passed away, and I have been to every single one of their funerals. And throughout their funerals, I think I could count on one hand how many tears I shed. Since transitioning, however, I think I would need some sort of like Google spreadsheet or something like that to count that, because I'm just so much more in tune with my emotions now than I ever was before. And maybe that was because I was suppressing it because society says that, men don't show emotion or something like that. And
But
now
it's
I
probably
feel free
both.
to.
It's probably
Yeah.
both. But
Yeah.
was so just before this call, someone like randomly messaged me that I've talked to. It was asking in the he had a certain context, but he was
Yeah.
like, "Have you cried?" And I was like, "What the fuck? Why are you asking me if I cried?" But I cry all the time,
Yeah.
and when I cry, I feel like I have to hold it back. Just
Mhm.
like I had a stream recently. I was talking about music with some guy called Key of Weird. He's pretty cool.
Mhm.
And in the middle of that conversation, I got like choked up just talking about like the way artists feel inspired or something like that. And I just
Yeah.
started like getting choked up. And then he was like, oh, like like he realized it too. He's like, oh shit. Um, and like I remember I was with my family watching Avatar 2, and I like cried like 3 times. But I'm allowed to like cry with like the tear running down my face. But if I like sob like and make a noise, then it's like
Right.
someone's gonna be weird about it. And yeah, so but also I'm sure the hormones do change that too, and how you
Yeah.
experience emotions like immediately. Um, but yeah, I don't think that men are not emotional. I'm
Right.
very emotional.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think a lot of the reason that I felt pressured to suppress a lot of that was the pressure that society puts on me, or put past tense on me. As a man, I kind of felt like, crying was a sign of weakness or something like that. And so often I would suppress that, or often I would, instead of getting sad, I would get angry, or express my emotions in some sort of outburst in that way, rather than feeling like I'm in tune with my emotions and I can express them the way that they need to be expressed.
All right, I'm
And
gonna.
so
Okay, sorry.
yeah, go ahead.
I thought you were done. No, no, no. Continue. Sorry.
Oh, I was
I
just
saw,
gonna say I feel free to express that now,
yeah.
as I am currently. Yeah.
Sorry. I want to ask some questions from chat.
Okay.
I just noticed. So how do you, in then quotes, talk to someone like they're a girl?
Um, so there's a lot of things. Using feminine pronouns like she and her, using little words like sweetie and darling and stuff like that. Um, if you're ever into like kind of like ERP, erotic role play, you'll kind of be in tune with what I'm talking about.
Well, I've
And I
had
think
the same experience as you, and like as just as a man or as a boy or as a femboy, whatever, like experiencing someone saying, "sweetie" to me, like an old lady calls me like sweetie or whatever.
uh-huh.
Just experiencing that is so fulfilling because of the
Hmm.
lack of intimacy that men generally get.
Right.
And it is objectifying. And I think a lot of women resent that because it is objectifying. But for a man, the act of being objectified is being allowed to be vulnerable. And
Hmm.
and so I think that men should just be sweeties.
Yeah, I think so too. I think if men want to be sweeties, they should be sweeties. That's fine. Um, but yeah, that's when I say talk to me like a girl, that's a very basic reduction of what was actually happening. I tried to put it in words that most people would understand. Um, and so that's what I came up with. But ultimately, yeah, allow me to be vulnerable, allow me to express myself as a girl or as a woman or whatever. Um, and yeah, I found it very fulfilling.
If you're rejecting gender norms and stereotypes, what does transitioning even mean?
Transitioning to be trans is just the idea that you're not cis. And by that, it means that you don't identify with the gender that you were assigned at birth, with the sex you were assigned at birth, right? Um, you don't necessarily, in my view, have to be taking hormones to be considered trans. It's just that self identification of, okay, yeah, I don't identify with this. This is not me. This is not who I want to be. That's all that matters as far as the definition of being trans. And so a lot of trans people will reject these kind of social norms, will reject these gender norms and stuff like that. In that, not every trans person wants to be the 1950s housewife. There are muscle girls out there that love going to the gym and love being dominating and stuff like that, but they're
Yeah,
still
but
trans girls.
the thing about that doesn't add up to me, that confuses me,
Hmm.
is for me the idea of changing my appearance so that people change how they treat me, because I think the problem is just how we treat men differently than women, or women differently from men. And if you want to be treated as one of those, then that's that pressure is put upon you. And the thought of changing my body to be treated like that and then also working out would undermine that, and that's why I feel like it doesn't make sense to me. I feel like if
Sure.
I want to work out and reap the benefits of that, then there's no better way than for me to not take hormones. You know what I mean? Like,
Right. Well, it's all about your personal goals, right? For a lot of trans people, it's transitioning isn't necessarily like when I say transitioning in this context, I mean taking hormones. So taking hormones isn't necessarily to change how other people will see you. Um, a lot of times, taking hormones for trans people means changing something about your body for yourself, right? Like the only person that's going to see my breasts as much as I am is, any other partner that I have. And that's it. I'm not taking hormones to get these huge badonkadonks that I can shove in everyone's face and have them call me a woman. That's not the reason I'm doing it. I'm doing it because I feel a disconnect, excuse me, between how my body is currently and how it should be ideally. And
this
hormones
this
are a means
is
to an end there.
this is the narrative. This is a particular narrative I really don't like, because
Mm-hmm.
I believe that to I believe if you have a body image problem, or you don't like how your body is or whatever, I don't think that
Mm-hmm.
that is intrinsic. Like I think if you live in a vacuum, that can't exist. I think the path forward that's the best one is to just to stop being unhappy with your body and just accept yourself. Like I used to hate my body hair and like my leg hair and stuff, and I would shave it like constantly, like twice or three times a week. And
Mhm.
for me, my I found happiness not by getting laser hair removal or by taking hormones, but just like just finding in myself the courage not to hate my leg hair.
Sure. I mean, it's all about weighing the cost, right? So for some people, yeah, maybe accepting it would be easier. Maybe accepting the sex you were assigned at birth might be easier than trying to change it. Um, but the only argument there, I think, is that that option should be open to you. If you feel
Well,
like the cost is too heavy
the thing
for
that
accepting it, then you should have that option to take the hormones, to get the laser hair removal, to change who you are.
but I think that the reason that I was so I hated my leg hair so much is because of other people, and I wanted to be like sexy and stuff, and I got a lot of attention for it, for all my all the I spent hours and hours preparing to just go out of my house or go out of my room, and like I don't think it's like makeup. I don't think that it's healthy to need to put on makeup to feel good about yourself.
Well, for some people, as far as makeup goes, there aren't a whole lot of other options. There are a lot of people with like rosacea that don't have access to the kind of treatment that you would need in order to eliminate something like that. For a lot of people, it's something that they have to deal with for the rest of their lives. And
Sure,
in that
sure.
case, like, buying a $5, $10 thing of foundation is a lot easier than it is to go through the process of multiple years of doctors and seeing people and taking all these medicines that might have these other side effects and stuff like that.
Yeah, but
So
when
I
we
think it
talk
goes
about
back to like weighing the cost, right?
but when we talk about makeup, like I mean that's way more understandable. Like that's a really good argument for you to make towards me. That's way more understandable. But when we talk about makeup, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about just like people without rosacea or anything. They're just normal and they're not unattractive or anything. It's just the fact that all women wear makeup, that not wearing makeup makes you look ugly by comparison, and the fact that now you have to wear makeup just to be competitive in your appearance with other women, and you feel ugly without it. That's a pressure put on upon you that's unfair, and you should be able to be feel good about your appearance without needing it. And that's barring like some mitigating factors that make it more understandable.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, everybody has their own reason for wearing it. Like personally, I don't honestly wear all that much makeup. The most I ever really do is eyeliner. But I'm really fortunate in a lot of that is that, I've got a very slim build. I don't have to worry about any kind of contouring or anything like that. My face is naturally feminine. Right now, it's kind of swollen from my jaw surgery and stuff. But the most I'll do is eyeliner, and because it makes me feel better about myself. And that's true for a lot of people that wear makeup. It is not necessarily that they feel like they have to meet this standard because they feel like they have to compete with other women and be the best looking, the most pretty woman there is in the office or whatever. That's certainly an unhealthy, thought process, and not something that I think it echoes, maybe a deeper issue there than necessarily just the makeup. If your idea is that you have to do this in order to compete with other women because you want to be the best, it kind of makes me think a little bit of narcissism.
Well, I think that the dynamic of makeup sort of makes us more narcissistic, and the way we're advertised to, and the way we're made to feel inadequate without certain standards or products. Um, so
Certainly.
without eyeliner, do you feel ugly?
No, not at all.
But you feel more attractive with it?
Yeah, like I'll doll myself up if I'm going to an event or something like that. If I'm
I
if
mean,
I'm
you're not crazy. I mean, I'm what I'm saying is like you're talking about that's normal, obviously, but
yeah.
I'm challenging that. So I'm the crazy one, and so well, I'm not. I mean,
No, I
I'm the one pushing the limit here. I'm saying, wouldn't it be better to not need to wear the eyeliner to feel attractive?
I think it's not necessarily about feeling attractive for me personally, anyway. For me, it's about, um, I don't know. Even when I was a man, I kind of felt this. Like when you go to these events, you want to feel like you're presenting your best, right? Not necessarily that you're trying to attract someone, but I liked the idea of, I liked dressing up and picking out an outfit and going to a higher class event that I would normally not attend, and making an appearance and stuff like that. I enjoyed that kind of thing. And I think that's the same for a lot of women. I mean, I can't speak for all women, of course, but for me personally, when I'm going to an event, if I'm going out on a date to a fancy restaurant or something like that, I'll certainly do my eyeliner, maybe a little bit of mascara, stuff like that. But I usually don't put 2, 3, 4 hours into my face to do that. I don't feel like I have to.
Okay, okay, but you also did get jaw surgery. I don't like this. I'm making it very
So
personal.
hang
Towards you,
on,
but
let
you
me
seem
let me
okay with
interrupt
it.
you. Let me
Okay,
interrupt you.
feel free.
My jaw surgery isn't feminizing. My jaw surgery was because I broke it in 3 places.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay,
I blacked
okay.
out in a hallway and I fell down and they took x-rays and I broke it here, here, and right here in the front. And I'm still numb down here. So it was just to repair my jaw. It wasn't
Okay,
to form it or anything like that.
that's
Yeah.
that's probably helpful for chat because that was a comment I saw in the chat, and so I but also I don't like this process of sort of like just like breaking you down personally. It's better to be a little bit more abstract.
Yeah.
Um, so what do you think that you could feel euphoria without transitioning, like just by being cis? Because this is something that immediately comes up to my mind. Because I think in a lot of ways, I would feel euphoria in transitioning. I would get a lot of those same feelings as you. I think I would live to regret it personally, but I can't imagine a way to feel that euphoria without transitioning.
For a good number of years of my life, um, I felt the same way in that my perspective of transitioning myself was that, I'm certainly proud of my trans friends who have done that. I think they're very brave and bold, and it takes a lot of, mental fortitude to come to that conclusion about yourself. But when it came to me for a long time, I felt like, well, that's just not me. That's not who I am. And it was through a number of years and a lot of little things that kind of built up over time to make me accept that about myself. And when I started taking hormones, I started to feel that, alleviate. I started to feel that, the person that I am becoming is the person that I was meant to be necessarily. And um, I think that that stage of denial that I had almost held me back to an extent because, if I had just accepted that about myself from the beginning, then I could have started a lot sooner. I could see a lot more progress today than I did, than I have so far.
Yeah, but this is an argument that I get told a lot of times from people telling me I'm trans, is that I like people that are older will be like, oh well, I wish I started when I'm 29. They'll be like, oh, I wish I started when I was 29 or whatever, and it's always, no matter how old you are, you wish you started younger.
Yeah, I think that's true. Yeah. Because when you've come to that realization that you are trans, that you're going to start hormones and everything like that, I think everyone has that level of regret, no matter what age you are. That's why a lot of the trans community is pushing for education about trans people and gender nonconforming and non-binary people and stuff like that. Maybe a little bit earlier when people are doing sex education and stuff like that. I was in sex ed when I was in middle school, and I remember watching the videos that they had posted from the local broadcasting company, and it was just like nightmare pictures of people like with very, very severe STDs. right? And so for a long time, I had this thought, well, if I ever get an STD, my life is completely over. I'm ruined. Like, I'll never be the same. And, after a little bit more education about it, I realized that, that's a very niche, very, very niche, like worst of the worst kind of STD that they were showing me back then. And the large majority of STDs are treatable and are curable. And the ones that aren't, you can still, live your life with. Herpes is certainly not a death sentence for those that have it. HIV isn't even a death sentence anymore. You can become completely undetectable, and with stuff like PrEP, you can be non-transmittable, and
You
a whole lot of
don't want
things.
it. You certainly don't want it.
No, you certainly don't want it. I'm not saying
I know. Just
bug
saying.
chasers are a thing, and
Like
I'm not going to open that Pandora's box.
Yeah. I'm just saying, like,
Um,
it's not like it's nothing. It's like if you get it, it's gonna be life changing. Yeah.
it's going to be life-changing, but it's not the end of your life, right?
Yeah.
It's not the end. And I think that was instilled into me at a very, very young age. And so I had this like almost fear of being sexually active with anyone. I thought for a long time that, all people would always be deceitful about what STDs they had and whether I was going to get them and stuff like that. And I think that was the point, was to make young people kind of fear that, sexually engaging with other people. And that makes sense, right? Like the idea is to, make sure that people don't have sex until they're of the legal age of consent and stuff like that. But I think it's the way that they're doing it is harmful almost, that they're like this installation of this inherent fear. Like not everybody breaks that, And so that's why I think that, more education needs to be pushed regarding a lot of these trans issues and stuff like that. Not necessarily saying, oh yeah, let's put all the kids on puberty blockers or anything like that, but just education about trans issues, education about trans people in general needs to be more widely broadcast, I think.
I spoke with someone, a female AAFAB person who does not identify as trans, but has started taking low doses of testosterone. And they said that they were doing it because it makes them feel better and makes them perform better. And they're like working out and stuff.
Yeah.
And that really was interesting to me because they're separating it from completely from the identity. And they're just talking about it like a medical, like physiological thing they want. And so the euphoria you're talking about, I just was realized on me, I probably would feel if I started taking steroids and working out, but I don't think it's a good idea to take steroids either.
Well, I mean, it's, yeah, I'm not a doctor, consult with your doctor, but yeah, I think it's, that person is not, that person that you talk about, that's not the first time that I've heard something like that. I dated an AFAB person for a long time that wanted testosterone gel to increase the size of their clitoris for, different euphoria reasons and stuff like that. Like they didn't consider, I'm not fully trans. I don't want my voice to deepen. I don't want to start growing body hair everywhere. I don't want to be injecting testosterone every week, stuff like that. But they felt like that was something that they wanted. And so they kind of looked into it and decided against pursuing it because testosterone gel is a pain in the ass to get a hold of. But I think if it were more accessible, they would feel like that was an option and they could get a hold of that and start doing that for themselves. Yeah.
Right, but but what I'm saying is I think that like if I were to like that would be the equivalent of like taking steroids. And I think it's just, you should just not take steroids.
Well, you could say that you should just not have any cosmetic surgery. That all bodies should be accepted, period.
Yeah.
And yeah, I wish we lived in that fantasy world where that were true. But, people are always going to find things about themselves that make them unhappy and find solutions to that. And, unfortunately, we don't live in the world where we get a character builder before we're born. I kind of wish we did, but that's beside the point.
Yeah, but the only reason that you don't like these things about yourself is because of society and other people.
I wouldn't say that. There are certain things that I didn't like about myself, independent of society. Um, Before I started transition, my nipples were incredibly small. Um, I almost didn't feel like a man just taking my shirt off because I have such a small build. With my nipples being that small, I see other, shirtless men that, have a little bit of weight on them and their nipples are just like normal sized, right?
I
And
got
so
small nipples.
yeah, you understand the struggle,
But
right? Like,
I like it. I like my small nipples. I'm proud. I like it. I love it. I love
well,
having small
good,
nipples.
good. That's good for you. I'm glad you have that body positivity. But I hated that about myself. And
But
after I
why?
started hormones,
But
I started,
you just said that you would look at other men though, and you would say that you would compare yourself to others and stuff.
right, but there's no societal expectation for men to have certain size nipples. That doesn't exist. But that was something that was inside me, I felt insecure about it. And so that's why I started, well, not the only reason why I started, but when I started taking hormones and I saw that, that was changing, I was becoming a lot happier with myself. And over the almost 2 years that I've been on hormones, I find myself more and more happy with the way that my body's shaped. My hips to an extent have almost reshaped. My figure is way more hourglass like than it ever was before. I'm very, very positive about my body image now, whereas 2 years ago I was kind of like a little bit overweight and not. I didn't really like the way that I looked, and the things that I would have to do to put effort into my body to become happy with it were daunting, were intimidating. I didn't want to do any of those things. I didn't feel like working out was my thing. For a long time I didn't work out. I didn't feel any need to work out. Um, yeah, I don't know.
How do you feel about trans women in sports?
Um, so this is another complicated topic.
I don't think it's
Um,
complicated. I think it's simple.
yeah, what do you think?
I think they shouldn't be. I think that trans women should not be in women's sports
Why?
because I don't think it's about identity at all. I think I think the categories exist because women are weaker,
Okay.
and so if we want to have a society where women can compete, so most people are not trans, almost all. So
Right.
like so I think that it's if so without screwing trans people in what I'm saying, like bring that in next. But I'm saying just men and women. If we want a society where women can compete in sports, and I want that, I want women to be able to strive and to be the best. They'll never be the best compared to men in a lot of areas. There are some that they will, but in a lot they won't. And
Hmm.
I think that that's why we have women's sports. I want the women around me to be empowered like that. I want them to be striving, and I think that trans women have a unfair advantage, and it's unfair to them because there's not really a good place for them to fit in. But I think that they have like just because you're you've transitioned for like what is it, like I think like it's just like 6 months, they say, like you have to do the hormones, and like that doesn't that like so this like swimmer that was a controversy a while back, like
Leah
if you
Thomas, yeah.
yeah, if you look at the photos of this swimmer next to the like other women, like they're like massive like shoulders, like and like a build that like they developed from years of developing as a man and like training as a man. um it just is utterly unfair. It's not like the reason is competitiveness, and it just undermines the whole point of having the gendered categories.
Well, how do you feel about trans men in sports?
I don't think that they're nearly as competitive. So I don't think it here's the thing. So male sports are actually not male sports. Women could go into a woman can join the NFL. It's just she's not going to be competitive. We just have sports and women's sports, because women sports we're saying no, men, you need to stay out. Like I know in my high school there was a woman who joined the wrestling team, and she was pretty good. Like for a woman, she competed with some of the men. It like there's nothing stopping a woman from doing that and joining. It's just that they're at such a massive disadvantage. So when a trans man joins a male sport team or whatever, that's not even if she was even if he was a woman, it wouldn't be controversial or against it would be notable, but it wouldn't be against the rules. That's already fine.
Okay, I understand that. Then, what I would say is that what gets overlooked a lot is the fact that when you are on hormones for a certain period of time, you do actually begin to lose muscle mass. That becomes incredibly hard to regain. And I would say that, for the few victories that Leah Thomas have seen, if you compare Leah Thomas's times now as a trans woman to her times before she started transition, you will see a significant difference, a significant, increase in the amount of time that it takes for her to complete a lap now versus there was then. And, I would say that the Olympics has a really good standard here as far as measuring testosterone levels. One of the interesting things about that is that there have been several cis women who have been denied entry into their Olympic sport because their testosterone levels are simply too high. They don't take supplements, it's just the natural production of testosterone. And those limits were put in place to restrict trans women, and cis women are getting hit by this too. So there has to be a balance, I think, certainly. And that conversation can be led by people who are more educated in sports. But like people like Alana McLaughlin, they become targets because their build is a certain way, right? Like if I wanted to join a running team or a wrestling team or a swimming team or something like that, nobody would say bunk to me because my development has been a really small build for the entire time I was alive. I never really grew any body hair, all this stuff. But I would just say that it's really subjective, and the media tends to pick these examples of like trans women succeeding against cis women and kind of bullhorn them out as like this is happening everywhere.
It
that
does happen
people
a
are
lot.
transitioning their gender just to succeed at sports, and we find that that's just not the case.
I think that probably has happened. I don't think that's always the case, but there's certainly people that will do that because they're narcissists. But certainly. But I mean, like just there are a lot of trans women that do very well. Like for the amount of trans women like that go into the Olympics, they're pretty successful.
Do you have data on that? Can you send me some links?
Not offhand, but I mean,
Okay.
there are not
Gotcha.
a lot of trans women, and I know of a lot of trans women athletes that dominated women.
Well, if you can find some links for me, I'd really appreciate that. But from my experience in all the coverage of trans news and trans sports that I've done, I've seen that there are, a few examples here and there of trans women succeeding over cis women, but by and large, the majority is that cis women blow these trans women out of the water consistently and on a regular basis. Leah Thomas has won a few events, but ultimately she does end up losing a majority of the events she participates in. And the media just takes the one or two events that she wins or performs well in and writes articles and does these news stories on them. And that, riles up people to get the hate going.
Well, I just don't think she should be competing.
Well, she's competing at the same level that cis women are.
I think that she does way better in that. Shouldn't she win every single category in that one?
No.
Event?
No, let me pull up. I don't know how to parse this data. I am not into sports. Oh my God.
So I've been working out, and um, something that I've noticed, especially when I was going to Orange Theory. Orange Theory is like CrossFit, but it's marketed to women more, and so there's a lot of women that go there. And so when I was going there as a man, there'd be a certain type of woman that would like side eye me, and they'd be like angry that I'm like running faster or something. And I accept that anger because as a man, I can not only can I perform better, but I can train harder. I can push myself further and get better faster. And to like just be just to have that for a number of years and develop in such a way, and like to then take hormones, I don't think you just remove all those benefits.
Well, again, I'm not an expert in sports. I've never participated in any sports. I think the only sport that I was really in was I was part of my school's mock trial team as a high schooler, and that was pretty much it. I was a debate lord, and that was all I was. So I'm not the best person to give an opinion on this. If it's up to me, though, I think trans women should be allowed. The data that I've seen supports that trans women compete at a level that's equivalent to cis women. Certainly not above and beyond what cis women can accomplish. But again, that's just my opinion. I'm not super into sports. I don't watch Sports Center every night or anything like that. So I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just thinking of like I know how I could argue with you, but I know we're just gonna disagree. So I know like the whole path it's gonna go down. So it's like it's not. So I want to have an interesting conversation with you and not just like bicker over like minor things.
Yeah, that's fine.
So, okay, so one thing I wanted to ask you that someone in my Discord asked you earlier, but you didn't answer, so it's a good time now. So what do you
Sorry.
think? No, you're not fucking obligated to answer random people, random people that ping you on my Discord. You're not obligated. But
That's okay.
it was like also just possibly just a nod to me. It's an idea to something to talk about. Have you heard of there's some philosopher professor Thomas Bogardus, and he wrote a paper, and he ended up going on many streams. He went on like first he went on Vosh, his stream, and then he went on Destiny, and then he spoke to Mr. Girl, and his paper is about woman. And he's got like this incredibly dense academic philosopher paper. And it's not just like the Matt Walsh "What is a woman" thing. But his thesis is that he could give you so many big words, but there is no way to define woman within any trans that includes all women, and like trans, like you're always going to exclude somebody unless you just do it by genetics. There's no other way to. So like, how would you define women? And then however you define it, I will attempt to point out an example that doesn't fit into it and see, because that's the dilemma he's saying.
Yeah. Well, I was talking about this on my stream earlier, was not Thomas Bogardus or anything, but that any definition that you use to define what a woman is going to exclude someone, period. Even the genetic definition is going to exclude those intersex people. that are born with like XXY chromosomes and stuff like that, and they still identify as women. They may
I
still have like.
I have
Go
a
ahead.
friend that's intersex, and
Hmm.
they don't identify as either.
Yeah, that's common too. Yeah. Um, but yeah, I find that the effort of defining what makes a woman and what makes a man is fruitless. I think it's a dragon that you're going to be chasing for the rest of your life if that's your goal. Kind of like looking for the philosopher's stone. I think it's pointless because these definitions are there's so much that goes into it, like perception and genetics and all this other stuff. I feel like a lot of it is subjective and everyone has their own definition. And it's just pointless to go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, but his argument is that the only useful one is the genetic one.
Yeah, and that's not even really that useful either because intersex people exist.
Yeah, well, they're a middle. They're in the middle.
How is there a middle if it's a binary?
Well, if it's XY and XX, and you're some combination thereof that isn't XY and XX, you're neither a man nor a woman.
Hang on, I want to Google this before I say it.
Because what you're adding in there is you're saying that it's their self-identifying that makes them a woman, but um, what I'm saying is that it doesn't. What you identify in this, I respect your pronouns and your identity and everything, but what in this train of thinking that then the self-identifying doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is the genetics.
So this is an interesting scientific paper um, that says gender-affirming hormone therapy induces specific DNA methylation changes in blood. We provide evidence for GHAT inducing a unique blood methylation signature in transgender people. This study advances our understanding of the complex interplay between sex hormones, sex chromosomes, and DNA methylation in the context of immunity. We highlight the need to broaden the field of sex-specific immunity beyond cisgender males and cisgender females, as transgender people and GHAT exhibit a unique molecular profile. I'll go ahead and link that to you as well. Meow, meow, meow.
So your
But yeah,
your victory, your victory, your victory.
I would say that science hasn't necessarily caught up to where we have all the information that we need to make such a determination.
I just Googled DNA methylation, and I'm just reading this now. The DNA methylation is a heritable epigenetic mark involving the covalent transfer of of a methyl group to the C5 position of the cysteine ring of DNA by DNA methyltransferases, DNMTS. In plants, cysteines are methylated in both symmetrical or CG or CHG, or asymmetrical CHH, where H is A, T, or C contexts. Okay. Well, anyway, I don't think that means that like your DNA is XX or XY though. It just sounds like it's tertiary, like thing.
Well, it shows that trans people exhibit a unique DNA structure after taking gender-affirming hormone therapy. But like I said, I don't think the science has really necessarily caught up to the point where we have all the information we need to make a firm decision on this. I think it's going to on what makes a man and what makes a woman and all this other stuff.
I think it's so simple though. Like it's like so like sexual difference is pretty cut and dry. There are like there's I think like I think we should really embrace the conversation about gender and sex being different, and I think the only useful definition, like, so as far as something like sports where you're talking about physicality differences, the only definition that makes sense to me is like I think that trans people are changing their body, and that makes them a weird middle ground that doesn't fit into these sexual groups anymore. And
Maybe, but then like especially with sports, you get to the point where it's like, oh well, are we going to limit in women's sports? Are we going to limit all people who have shoulder span of whatever length or whatever? You would still catch cis women in that,
no, but that's what I'm saying. I'm just saying like the fact I think that your example of them catching cis women who have too much testosterone, that doesn't make sense to me. I think just if you're the best of the best woman, then you are the best, and like so maybe you have extra testosterone or something, like you're gonna win and you should just be allowed to win. But
But that's how they tried to restrict trans women in these
I
Olympic
know,
sports, was
but
by
I'm
doing
saying
their
I'm
hormone
saying
levels and saying, "Oh, well, your testosterone's too high. Sorry,
yep,
you can't do it." And
I
then
agree
cis
that,
women started getting caught in that. Yeah.
but I agree that that's stupid, and I'm just
Yeah.
saying that I don't think they should even be competing. I mean, it's unfair to them, and I'm gonna I don't. It's not fair, but I mean, I think it's just the a distinction between having a male and female league is arbitrary, and we're doing it to just arbitrarily give women a fighting chance. And when you have people blurring the lines of where they fit in between on this arbitrary distinction, now you're like to allow these people that are blurring the lines to now like insert themselves where they want. That doesn't like that you that the lines are like we just no we like you can't be crossing these. It's simple, like it's just men and women, and like sex wise, and then if you're trans, you're like kind of in between.
What about a trans woman who's already had gender affirming surgery? What about a trans woman who's had an orchiectomy?
So
What
that's
about a
where
trans woman
like so
that
look,
has
I agree with
hormone
you
levels
that
equal to that of cis women?
well I absolutely agree with you that there are going to be tons of trans women that don't have a bunch of benefits from having developed as a man or something and stuff, and they'll genuinely be on the same page as a woman physically. But the only way to evaluate for that undermines the arbitrary sex difference in the first place, because that now at that point where you're evaluating is your physicality and your physical performance, and then you get this weird like place where you're trying to evaluate how much testosterone or how much how much like shoulder span or whatever, and that doesn't make sense. Like it's like we shouldn't be like we're not trying to make a soccer league or football or whatever how you want to call it. We're not trying to make that like boxing where there's weight classes. We're just saying there's a women's soccer and there's male soccer, and if we were to go down that road, then we're going down the weight class road where now it's not based on like
Right.
your sex.
Yeah.
So that undermines the whole distinction. And if we're going to do that, then what it's going to look like is it's going to be there's 10 different categories of weight classes, or 5 different categories, and cis women are going to always be in the low category, and then you'll have like this gradient where there'll be some trans women that are in the low category, and then there's some trans, and then there'll be more trans women kind of in the middle, and then at the top there's always going to be men. And so I think that puts it in a position where men are going to be seen as outperforming women once again, and it undermines the reason that we made the sports distinction in the first place, which is to uplift women and to allow them to compete and feel proud of themselves.
There came up a story of this state that has written more bills to prevent trans women from participating in women's sports than there are trans female athletes in the entire state.
Well, yeah.
The number of trans women here that are even a percentage of the population, let alone the ones that want to participate in sports. It's just such a small, insignificant number that it feels like we're going way above and beyond just to discriminate against these few specific individuals.
Yeah, but that it only takes one to beat everybody. Like
But that's,
if they
in practice, that's not what's happening.
it does happen.
Trans women have won a few events, yes, for sure.
I
But
okay. I will
by and large,
I
trans
don't
women lose to cis
I
women on a
don't
consistent basis.
I want you to give okay, so you're telling me I need to give you evidence. Well, I don't okay, I'm not giving you
Okay.
evidence right now, but if until you prove that to me, I do not believe that. I think that most I think that at large trans women generally perform better than cis women. Like they're going to win more per capita than cis women. If you can find me a per capita thing, then I'll have to be convinced.
I don't know about per capita because
That's what
again,
I'm saying. I'm saying that
well,
there's going
the
to be
number of trans women is just so small. The number of trans women participating in these sports is so small that a per capita argument doesn't make sense. But here, I just linked you something. I just linked you something. Okay.
Let's see. Where is it? Oh,
It's
is
in
it?
the yeah, it's in the chat.
Wait, which chat?
I guess the Smeth den.
Oh, I see it. Okay. That's weird. Okay. Um, Trans girls belong on girls' sports teams. Okay, already we're starting with a title
Yeah, it's a clickbait title. Yeah,
to
to get you to click the fucking article. Yes, yeah. But read it,
okay,
read
you
it.
understand that very well, don't you?
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I'm a YouTuber too. I get it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I get it too. Uh, where's the data though? I just want.
In fact, the vast majority of female athletes are cisgender, as are the vast majority of winners. There's no epidemic of transgender girls dominating female sports. Attempts to force transgender girls to play on boys' teams are unconscionable attacks on an already marginalized transgender children, and they don't address a real problem.
I don't think that. Okay, this is not convincing me. I'll read it though. Okay, I will read it, and that's hard for me.
Two days
I hate
two
reading.
days after the Connecticut lawsuit was filed by the cisgender girls' families, one of those girls beat one of the transgender girls named in the lawsuit. Cisgender
So
female who sues beat transgender athlete in high school race. Yeah, this is consistent. This is the consistent experience.
this is
that
one anecdote.
Trans girls will get 1 or 2 wins. There'll be a huge blow up by the media. There'll be lawsuits that go out, but it's not a consistent basis. Trans women do not win against cis women on a consistent basis. It's just not something that happens.
I feel that there are so few trans women athletes, and the number of stories that are here makes it appear that because there are so few of them, and I hear so many, and I see so many examples, that it seems that they and it seems obvious to me that they would have a physical advantage in the first place. That
What would you say if I told you that there's a trans MMA fighter named Alana McLaughlin who is currently undefeated at MMA?
I'm familiar.
Okay. Are you familiar with the fact that she has 1 win and 0 losses? And that's what I mean by undefeated. She's
Yeah,
had 1 fight.
I watched that.
Yeah.
Very very upsetting.
Why was it upsetting? It was a good fight. The
The one where
person
she broke the
this was one
woman's
of the
jaw.
first stories that I covered on my show when I first started this thing, was that the person that she was fighting against wanted to fight against her because everyone else refused.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
then afterwards, she
they're
said that
friends. They're
she said
friends.
afterwards she said that she never should have done it.
What do you mean?
She afterwards she made a statement that she had in all of her time fighting she had never gone against someone like that before, and that she was terrified, and it was like something she said something along the line of like a true like power that I just was unprepared to face, and she she said that she was wrong in wanting to do that.
I'm trying to pull up old articles. Like I said, this was one of the first things I talked about. But like they're friendly after the fight. Celine Prevost. Yeah, I remember her.
I don't like this thing that there's no proof that trans women have an advantage. Like, men have an advantage. If you develop as a man, you're gonna have advantages, like just by
But you're
developing.
ignoring the changes that happen to your body by taking hormones.
I
Like
don't. You earlier
if you
earlier you
haven't
said
if you talk to Alana McLaughlin about her experience, or you listen to her talk about her experience being trans and building her body and stuff, she says that her experience with bodybuilding was so much easier being a man than it was a
mm-hmm,
woman because it's harder for her to maintain that muscle mass as a
mm-hmm,
woman.
mm-hmm,
That even now at her bulkiest, she's still not nearly what she was before.
right. Look, so I just think that they don't fit into these categories, and I was going to say earlier, I don't think they fit into prison either. I don't think we should put trans women in either male or female prisons, because I think both cases. I think prisons are fucked up in the first place, but I think that we should not be putting trans women in male prisons whatsoever, and we should also not put trans women in women's prisons. I think that we need to put them in a separate prison or something. Like and that's how I feel about sports. I think that those distinctions are made unreasonable when we're talking about trans people.
I think if we're talking about trans women in prison, I think protective custody makes sense. The only thing I would be concerned about is isolation.
Oh yeah, no, not good.
Yeah, we don't want to isolate people. We don't want to make them feel like they're locked up
Torture,
in the hole for the
torture
rest of
them.
their life or anything. Yeah, that's torture. But yeah, certainly I understand that argument. Um, I think that it's again, a complicated issue. I'm not a legal expert. I'm not the best person to give an opinion on this either. But if it were up to me, yeah, I guess protective custody would be the best for both. The people who were, especially trans women, if they're going to men's prisons and stuff like that, protective custody is certainly the better option than
I
going to a
really
men's prison.
wouldn't want trans men to go into men's prisons either. I think that would be really bad.
I could see that. Yeah, I could certainly see that.
Yeah.
Um,
Have you ever heard so if I went to prison, it's there's a lot of bad depending on what prison. If it's like a violent prison with a lot of gangs, a lot of bad things can happen to you. And so like one of the things you can do is you can be someone's bitch, and
yeah,
they'll protect you. And that's probably what I would do.
yeah,
I would let someone fuck me in the ass. And
yeah.
I recently someone showed me a study that the men who make other men their bitches when they come out of prison return to heterosexual life, but the men who are the bitches end up being gay for the rest of their life.
Interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like sometimes when you hit that button, you can't undo it, right?
Yeah, but it's not. It's not. It's only from the submissive side, though.
Right.
It's that makes it more scary.
Well, to an extent, it's socially acceptable there to be vulnerable and to be submissive. And for a lot of these people that have gone to prison, especially straight cis males, they've never had that opportunity to explore that, you know? And so I don't know about the data on that, but that certainly would make sense to me.
Yeah. But I think that sending trans men to male prison is just sending them to be sex slave to someone, unless they're
I
in
could see
solitary
that.
confinement forever.
There's another argument to be had is that, the trans men having injectable testosterone is certainly way more potent than what most people can make on their own. Um, Again, I'm not an expert. I can't make any prescriptive claims about this or anything like that. But um, yeah, I would say that in my experience, uh, trans men are just as much men as trans women are women, from
Why
what
is
I've
it?
seen.
Why is it the case that we hear all these stories about trans women winning sporting events? We don't hear any cases of trans men winning sporting events.
That's a good fucking
I
question.
don't think because it doesn't happen.
Well, I would say that when you look at the trans community as a whole, trans women are more often overrepresented um, by the media and
I
just
think
being on social media. I see that I know trans men in these communities, and I know that they often struggle finding guests for their shows because they want to do like an all trans mask panel or something like that, and there just isn't that presence. That's not necessarily to say that there are fewer trans men than there are trans women, but it is to say that they certainly aren't as active on social media. And that is demonstrable. That is something that I can see with my own eyes, being on, social media for as long as I have. Um, and one thing I think that we tend to see a lot is that when people think about trans people, they only think about trans women. Because for a
that's
lot
not
of
what I'm
people,
saying.
huh?
That's not what I'm saying though. I'm just saying like I remember looking into this. I don't have the data. I mean, I went through a binge of just looking at this shit like the image that
Mhm.
you hate this, me fixating on this like this trans athlete shit. Just like fucking like sitting in my fucking desk right here and like looking at these look at all these trans women that are winning, and then I looked up and I tried to find a bunch of trans men athletes, no winners. I found some. They're no winners.
I haven't been looking into trans men athletes.
They have a massive disadvantage. That's why they don't win.
I don't know if it's that they're. Again, I'm really out of my element here. But, the thing that makes a lot of this development easier for cisgender men than it does cisgender women is the exposure to testosterone for a majority of their lives. And if you were to take like a trans man and start giving them testosterone at 13 years old and they developed and were into sports, I'm sure they'd be able to set some records or whatever. But the thing about it is that, testosterone is treated differently than estrogen is. Testosterone is treated as a controlled substance and as a steroid. And so it's, for a lot of trans men, harder to obtain testosterone than it is for trans women to obtain estrogen. With enough estrogen exposure, that alone can suppress your testosterone. You don't necessarily need a testosterone blocker to do that.
Yeah, but the
Um,
thing is, so here you're foregoing your previous argument because you're saying that the trans man that would win is one that started immediately from puberty with hormones, and so that they're the ones that are going to be identical to a male in performance, which might be the case. I don't know, but that sounds reasonable to me. But then you're saying the Olympic standard or whatever for what we're talking about, trans women, of 6 months, having gone through puberty all the way up to adulthood, and now you've just been on the hormones for 6 months. That's just as good as having had all the way from puberty all the way up to through all adulthood, having hormone replacement therapy through the whole thing. Now we're like, so I agree with you. If it
Well,
sounds
no,
reasonable.
I don't think it's a contradiction at all. Because you have to look at the people you're competing against, right? So in a lot of these, like you said, we have sports and we have women's sports, right? In a lot of these sports, it's just cisgender men that are competing because no one else stands a chance, right? At the highest level, no one else stands a chance because you're only going to get the top of the top players, and they're all going to be cisgender men.
Most sports, not all, but most.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying right there, is that in order to compete against those people, in order to stand a chance against those people, yeah, you would have to have a similar experience, right?
Right. But I'm saying, like, so you're saying is to be identical to them, you would have to have the similar experience. So what I'm saying is, from a trans woman experience, if you want to be an identical to a woman physiologically, you would have to start at like immediately from puberty. Like, so I don't think the 6 months.
Well, I
makes
certainly
sense.
want to encourage that. Yeah, if
Like,
people
so
want
I
to
believe,
do that, for sure.
I'm willing to, like, I'm willing to agree with you that if someone starts from puberty, like I have no problem with that person competing, like that trans woman competing on the women's sports teams. It doesn't bother me. Like,
Sure,
but the
but
6
the
months
issue is
does.
that it doesn't happen because the accessibility is not there. You have to be at least 16 to get hormones in so many
Right.
places.
Exactly.
Um,
And then I have a problem with it though. But also,
but
I wouldn't want trans women to start hormones at puberty, because I don't think like 12-year-olds have a good understanding of themselves, or what the hell they're doing. Like, I think I would have easily gone trans in kindergarten. Like, in kindergarten I had fantasies like, oh, what if I went to the all girls school or something and I had to wear skirts? That would be like so weird. And if I like talked to that about, like, to my therapist, they'd be like, oh, well, have you considered like these hormones or whatever? And I would have been like, oh, I could do that. That's weird. And I would go and I'd think about it and be like, oh my god, that'd be so exciting. I should do that. And I think that that would be, no, you shouldn't let kids do that. Like, you need adults to make these decisions, you know?
well, to an extent, I guess. Like, I certainly could have used like more parental guidance when I was younger. It's not like I was desperate for support or anything like that. You know, when I came out as gay at 13, my mom said, and this was like 20 years ago now at this point. My mom was like, "Well, yeah, honey, if you ever think that you might be trans, we can help you with that too." Not in so many words, of course, but um, it was just not something that I thought about, and I just kinda tucked that away in the back of my head like, "Oh, no, there's no way that can be me." I never really, you know, explored that thought with a therapist or anything like that. Um, like, it's it's a difficult question, and I'm not at all well versed in this topic to make a decision about it. You know, what I say here on the stream isn't going to be the end all be all for anyone. I'm just going to be able to give my opinion and how I feel about certain things. Yeah, certainly to compete with like the top 0.1% of athletes, you would have had to have like a strong training regimen. If you're a trans man, exposure to testosterone as soon as possible, because testosterone is a workout supplement. However,
I think if you
for
want,
trans women, if you're suppressing your testosterone at equal levels to cis women, I don't think that necessarily that you necessarily have to be on estrogen from puberty in order to be at an equal level. I
no,
think the
I
effects that
don't.
estrogen and testosterone have on your body are wildly different.
No, I don't agree. I think that you develop, like I was saying, because I have testosterone, if I go to the gym, I can push myself way harder than the women around me. I can train way harder. I can like women are gonna get injured easier. I'm gonna like so like there's just everything like you're just going to develop
But you're
physically
gonna
better
be able
through.
to injure me better. You're gonna be able to, because my testosterone levels are nearly undetectable at this
Right.
point. I still have like my testosterone producing gonads and everything. But the hormone therapy that I'm on has suppressed my testosterone to a level where it's not going to be any benefit for me to work out. It's not
Right.
going to,
But that's not what I'm saying.
yeah,
I agree with that, but what I'm saying is like so maybe you were not very physically active or anything, but if you're an athlete, you probably were. And to have developed and have trained and grown muscle and bone and like so the right side of my chest, my rib cage sticks out more, and these ribs are here more pronounced because
yeah,
all the way through childhood, I would put all of my like big heavy books in my bag, and we're supposed to leave them at home. I had a 50
yeah.
pound backpack, and I would carry it with one arm and put it on my shoulder, and so these ribs are bigger, just because I used that arm more, and now I have bigger ribs here. So just the act of developing as a man with that testosterone is going to cause your body to be more uh, dominating to people who didn't.
But that's what I'm saying when I say that when we get to the point where we're saying, oh, if you have this certain bone structure, you can't compete in women's sports. You're going to
Yeah.
exclude cis women.
No, I think it's
Yeah.
I think the lines are blurred with trans people, and so I think that we shouldn't do about on bone structure. I'm saying this is an example of why there is a high potential of an unfair advantage, and I am willing to say that line is blurred so little if you actually started from puberty, that I don't doesn't bother me at all. I think it's probably fair, but also I think that that's a fantasy because I'm also against people starting at puberty, so I think
Yeah.
it's kind of a null point. But
I was gonna say, so you're for trans kids getting the health care they need. That's awesome.
when
I appreciate that.
when I wanted to transition, I wished that I transitioned from puberty, um, and like because
Yeah,
like I
I
said,
did too. Yeah,
you always wish that you'd done it earlier,
yeah.
and but I'm glad that I didn't.
Okay, and that's fine. That's a valid experience. There are people that did and end up regretting it and detransition, and those people's experiences are valid too. But there are people that did transition, wish they had transitioned sooner, and don't regret it at all. And those people should have had an opportunity.
So how do you know you? So you trust the judgment of the kid?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's one thing. Okay, we disagree. We've disagreed a lot on the trans people in sports, but we're
Uh-huh.
disagreeing on one thing. But I think we disagree on this other
I
thing.
think
And
a lot of people will take the argument and be like, well, my 10-year-old, my 11-year-old thinks he's the Hulk today, and tomorrow he's going to be Spider-Man and stuff like that. And so how can I trust that he knows what's best for his identity? But I think a lot of it comes down to having an honest and open discussion with your kid. I think that's what it comes down to, and education about these issues and stuff like that. And that's why I'm trying to push for more education about trans issues so that parents are more educated about the signs of, there are some parents that their kids have come out and started transition later on in life, and they were like, how did I not see this before? Because of all these other behaviors and stuff like that. And
the thing is, that I agree with you about is the euphoric experience of being trans, and I think that is something that a child can't consent to.
if you think that a child can't consent to being trans, then by definition, that would mean that a child can't consent to being cis either. And we should put all
Right?
children on puberty blockers until they're
No,
old enough to make their own decision.
you can't consent to being born, but uh,
Exactly,
so,
exactly, right? So where's the line? Where does it draw? Right?
so
If a
you're
if a child
born.
can't consent to being trans, then a child can't consent to being cis either.
I don't think taking hormones and stuff is just no big deal.
Well, that's your opinion, and you're free to have it.
So you think it's no big deal? Because if you think
Yeah.
that, that makes sense,
I
right?
mean, from my experience, if you want to try out hormones for 4, 5, 6 months, and see how you feel about it, I don't think that's a big deal. No,
All
I
right. Well,
think,
I'm gonna tell you my most spicy take, so then you're gonna hate me utterly. Okay? I think that a lot of trans people hate themselves, and I think that in trying to become a new person, like hate for themselves for reasons I already said, because of the social pressures in society, how you're being treated, how you're seen, and I think that there is this tempt here. There's this the dangling fruit of you can fix this by being a new person, the person that you want to be. You can become. You just need to change your body, and now you're going to be that. And it will change how other people treat you, maybe. And I think that's unfair that they're going to treat you different in the first place. But I don't think changing yourself to become a new person is a healthy thing at all. I think that you shouldn't have to change yourself like that.
okay.
So, like letting kids make the decision to change themselves like that, that's a I don't think that we should let kids do that. Like that you should have every opportunity to not feel that way and not want to change yourself like that. Like that's
Well, it's certainly not like it's the structure of it currently is that a kid wakes up one day and says, "Hey, mom, today I'm a girl." And then the mom goes, "Oh, well, let's go to the hospital and get you started on hormones immediately and let's get you scheduled for all these surgeries that you can't necessarily have yet and all this stuff." That's not how it works. There's a lot of time, a lot of discussion that goes into stuff like that. And hormones is part of it, sure, but I disagree with the notion that there's this pressure from the trans community for people to start hormones because one of the big talking points in the trans community is self ID. That if you say you're trans, and that's all that needs to be said about it, right? That you don't
right.
necessarily have to be on hormones. You don't have to be on hormones for a certain amount of time in order to be a trans woman or trans man.
I don't agree. I think that I think self-reporting in general in science is a problem. To use self-reporting as evidence of something, I don't think is valid evidence to prove anything.
Why?
So because I don't think that people really understand themselves. So okay, so recently I saw some like an interview that Mr. Girl did with someone about parasociality, and he was like as a streamer in this context, we talk about parasociality. We're like obviously it harms people, and it's an interesting conversation for a streamer to have with a researcher who's done some level of research into this topic, so that we can try to like protect the audience in some way. And this researcher said that they'd done surveys to people on Twitch and stuff, and their conclusion is because based on the feedback they got from this survey, it's great. There's no problem with it. Everybody said it's great, so it's great. No, that doesn't mean it's great just because everybody said it's great. Like that, like it, it's like insidious. Like yeah, of course you think it's great because you think obviously like if you're watching the stream you're going to think it's great. If you're transitioning you're going to think it's good. That doesn't mean you actually know like so
Well, then we get to the argument of what is a fact.
a
Because
fact.
it's like, yeah, like
We're talking about facts about how
if
people
you
feel.
if you ask like if you ask people who are against transgender people if transitioning is good, you're gonna get all no's.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
So
If
you're
it's
pointing
good.
out just selection bias here, right?
No, I'm saying people don't know how they feel, or they don't know how things are affecting them. You don't know why you're mad all the like so if you're 12 and you want to transition or whatever, like I said, it could be the case that you are bullied and you're not treated the way you want to be treated. You have some women that you idolize and you wish you were treated like them, and so on and so forth, and you just hate yourself and you want to be this new person. And I think that hating yourself is something that we don't overcome. To give someone the option to stop hating themselves by changing themselves as if that's a good thing, I think that's dangerous. I think we should like because you're not to your solution to hating yourself isn't if you hate yourself because you rape people, well, maybe you should change yourself, you know. But I don't think that, like wanting to be a like like I think that, like, if you hate yourself because people don't treat you right because you're a man or whatever, or you're a woman, like that's not the same. Like, you shouldn't have to change anything about yourself.
Okay. But that's why, like, a lot of this, like, starts with gender therapy, right? Like speaking to an actual therapist about gender identity and gender issues and stuff like that. That's where a lot of this should start, but a lot of this is inaccessible to people. So if this is the kind of thing that bothers you, what you should be pushing for is more acceptance of people going to gender therapists, more accessibility for people to have that, to be able to question that about themselves. At some point, you're probably going to think about, well, there's going to be a narcissist that comes in and says all the right things to a therapist just to be able to get started on hormones and blah, 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 all this stuff. Well, yeah, at some point, sure, there will be. I mean, law of averages says that there will. But is it really worth restricting the care for so many other people who aren't narcissists just because there are a few narcissists there? And I think the
Well, I
answer to
mean,
that is no.
well, I think this is not scientific, but I've heard this said a lot, and I'm sure there's a scientific way I can say this. I just don't know it, but I think in a lot of ways, like, all 12-year-olds are narcissists.
I don't think I was a narcissist at 12 years old. I had like no fucking self-confidence or anything.
Yeah, but when I was 12 years old, I would have said whatever I had to say to get whatever I wanted.
See, I wouldn't have done that. I was a kid that always like played by the book. I was raised like to respect rules and stuff like that. Like my brother was one of those kids that would say whatever he wanted and do things behind my parents' back and stuff like that. But I was always like a keep your head down kind of like as long as they're happy, you're happy kind of thing, you know?
Hmm. Okay.
Like I was already suffering from depression at like 12, 13 years old. I was already on like antidepressants and stuff like that at such a young age. And that, you could make an argument that that was harmful to my development. You could make an argument that, well, if hormones are bad for kids, if kids shouldn't be taking hormones, then kids shouldn't be on antidepressants. They shouldn't be on anti-anxiety meds. They shouldn't be doing these things and stuff like that because it'll change how they develop.
I kind of think that too.
Well, that's
Well,
not.
at least I'm consistent. Like, I'm genuinely, like, I do. I
At
think
least
that
you're
too.
consistent.
I do think that too. I think both of these things. I do.
Yeah, I figured
So-
you would.
I think so. I started to take. See, now I got tears coming, and I'm afraid to cry, so I'm not going to.
Don't be afraid to cry. You can cry with me.
It already stopped.
Damn
So-
it. Almost had you.
So yeah, I have a ADHD diagnosis that I got when I was young, and
Yeah.
I wish that I had never gotten those meds. I depend on them now. For me to get off of them and to, like, become a normal, healthy person without them,
Yeah.
I think I could, and I wish I could. If I was rich and could do whatever I wanted at infinite time, I think it would take me a couple of years.
Imagine being addicted to benzos at 16.
Yeah, I don't think they should. So I think that I was struggling or whatever in some ways. I was acting out. I was, and the way they diagnose is really weird because they just talk to your, like, parents, and so if I had never gotten that and I developed, I would have been a totally different person, and I would rather be that person.
Yeah, you think so?
Yeah, I would have suffered in some ways. The meds
Do
made a
you
lot of
think it's
things
just that
easier.
the box is unopened, and you think there might be gold in there?
What I'm saying is that the suffering I would have experienced by not getting those meds at an early age would have helped me develop into a person that wouldn't need the meds.
Sorry, the cat pulled my earbud out.
Oh.
What'd you say?
I said what I'm saying is that the suffering that I would have experienced had I not been prescribed the medication would have made me develop into the person that never needs the medication. I would have developed all these skills and coping skills, and I would have figured it out. And I just haven't. I mean, in some ways I have, but like I wish that I had. I wish I'd learned that. I would have been more me. Because right now, I would have been Seth. I'm Smeth. I got meth in my name, motherfucker.
There's you're not the only person that has meth in their name that I know.
Yeah. Who else?
I don't want to talk about them. They're not a good person.
Okay. Well, yeah, so yeah, I just do think that. I think that another thing I've said is I think that a lot of women are on antidepressants that shouldn't be, and they're just like on them because their lives suck, and the way they're being treated by men in their lives suck, and like housewives and shit. Like there's the amount of women prescribed antidepressants is way too much. What I think they should do, I think they should stop. They should flush them all in the toilet. Is look at their husband and just scream. Don't stop fucking screaming. Just like keep yelling until something fucking changes.
Oh my god. I don't know if that's a healthy coping mechanism though.
Child Logic said the same thing to me. But,
he's got a head on his shoulders for sure. Well, did you want to wrap this up? I kind of to piss really bad, so.
Yeah. All right. What does your tattoo say? I was curious.
It says, "This is not the end."
Cool.
I got it when I think it was like a week or two after Chester Bennington committed suicide. Because it was, it's a lyric from a couple of his songs.
Yeah. I was. People didn't give the newer Linkin Park stuff enough credit because it was getting pretty good. It like got not so great for a while, but then it was getting good again. But
yeah, One More Light is amazing.
Yeah.
Not just the song, but the album entirely. Like it's a really good album. Yeah, the Living Things was really good. I feel like that was kind of like their call back to their roots almost.
1,000 Suns wasn't good.
I disagree. I think 1,000 Suns was fantastic for a number of reasons. Wait, it was very experimental.
The one with the song "Try to Catch Up, Motherfucker."
Yeah, that was kind of cheesy. But Mike has always been cheesy in his lyrics. Like if you go back and listen to some like early Linkin Park stuff, like a lot of Mike's lines are just like really cringe.
Yeah.
If you listen to any of Mike's music that he made after, I still think it's pretty cringe. I don't know. It doesn't feel like rap to me. You know, it feels like you're just rhyming things. If that makes any sense.
Yeah. Well, this is not the end.
You're right. It's not.
All right. Well, it's nice talking to you.
You as well. Have a good night.
You too. Smeth heads. The insanity is slowly coming out. I'm guessing that's me. Let's see. The insanity is slowly coming out. The insanity is slowly coming out. That was your dose of Smethadone. Have a good night, Smeth heads.